Hey guys, as we got back into a lockdown, we're going to have to start doing a little bit more work remotely, unfortunately. Some of the work that we'd be normally doing in the classroom, I'm going to show you how to do them via these videos. You've got 10 assessments that you'd be expected to do while you're at college, one of them being what I'm going to do today, which is the recess dry lining box. And what I want you to do is, while I'm going through these practically, I'm showing you how to do these assessments, I want you to write down the tool list, the material list and the method statement. It's very important that you do this because it will make the process of doing the assessment a lot quicker when you start coming back into college. So once again, tool list, material list and method statement. What I mean by the method statement is which tools I use at what time, what measurements do I use, how I use the tools, the little tips and tricks that I'll be expecting you to learn as you're going through them, the safety precautions that are put in place, all of these things that you need to be written down so that when you come into college, you do it correctly first time, and then we can just pass you and get on to the next assessment. Okay, so let's start with our materials list. The materials list is actually quite short, in fact there's only one piece in this instance, which is our fast fix box, also called a dry lining box. Our materials list is going to be a tape measure, a piece of chalk, a pad saw, which we've not used yet, and our level. Now before we start anything, we need to make sure that this level is working correctly. It's actually quite important for this task because we've got to make sure that all of your work is level. So what we do is we have a look through the window, hopefully you can see, the bubble is slightly over to the left. If I flip the level over, so long as the bubble is in the same place, we know that this level is working. And once again, the bubble is slightly over to the left. Hopefully you can see that. So let's start with the work that we're going to be doing.
A few moments later.
Okay, so now we've got our tools and materials together, we're going to start installing the dry lining box. Now, the first step I want you to write down is the height of the socket. The socket can be installed between 450 millimeters from the ground to a maximum of 1,200 millimeters from the ground. Okay, so I've drawn a line at 450 millimeters. That's the minimum a socket can be installed. I'm going to make sure that before I start putting the saw into the wall, that there's no chance of me hitting any cables. The way that we do that is by making sure that where the socket is going, there are no sockets or switches above, below, or to the side of where you're installing the new socket. Could be a switch, could be anything that's recessed into a wall. So once we've made sure that there are no sockets above, below, or to the sides, or switches, we should be safe to install this socket. So I'm going to draw out where I want to install my socket. So I'm going to line up my box on the line that I've drawn, fold it up, then I'm going to get my chalk, I'm going to draw around the box. It's not quite as accurate with chalk because you can't get an accurate line, so I'm going to go slightly inside of the lines that I draw. So I'm going to level my lines out. Make sure that's level. There it is. Like I said, I'm going to go slightly inside of the lines that I've drawn because the chalk's not a very good way of marking out for boxes. You would normally use a pen or a pencil of some sort. Okay, and then the last line, again make sure it's level and mark that out. Put my box back in, let's see how it looks. Yeah, so again, I'm going to go slightly inside of the lines that I've drawn. Okay, so we've made sure that there are no wires behind the wall. We've also got to make sure there's no stud behind the wall. The stud work is what's holding the board to the wall. They're usually bits of 3x2 wood that run vertically down the stud wall. The way I'm going to do that is by putting the saw into the wall in the centre. I'm then going to feel with my saw that way, make sure there's nothing in my way. And then I'm going to feel this way with my saw and make sure there's no wood that way. The reason why it's important that we don't go too close to the stud work is because we need space for these latches to push into the wall. Okay, see how it protrudes slightly? If we go all the way up to a stud, when we put the box into the wall, we won't be able to push these catches out. Okay, so I've made sure there's no stud work that way. And there isn't. I've made sure there's no stud work that way. The next thing I'm going to do is make sure there's no stud work above or below where I'm installing the box. So I'm going to pat my saw back in, like that. Give it a few cuts, and have a feel up at the top. There's nothing there. And we'll do the same down. And there's nothing there. So we know that when we start cutting out for this dry lining box, we're not going to hit any stud work. I'm now going to start cutting out for the box. So I'm going to go into my first corner. I'm going to pat the saw into the wall using the palm of my hand. I'm now into the wall. And then you're going to cut along the chalk line. There's my first cut. I'm now going to go up. Again, I'm going slightly inside of my chalk lines because the chalk's a lot larger than the box itself. I don't want to go too wide, otherwise the box will be rattling around. So I'm going to go up now, up the wall. And again, pat the saw into the wall. Okay, and then I'm going to go across the top. Again, use the palm of your hand. And then my final one, I'm going to go up. Now, it's very easy at this stage to hit the saw into the wall and crack plaster. Okay, so when I've come to the last cut, what I'm going to do is I'm going to put my saw in like this, and instead of hitting it with the palm of my hand, I'm going to wiggle it in. Okay, it's a lot gentler. It takes a little longer sometimes. However, it makes sure that when you're cutting this last cut, that it doesn't snap and take a big section of the plaster out.